A while ago, we covered my 10 favourite weapons in Planetside 2. The weapons that I swear by when things get hairy, when the alert is down to the wire, or when I'm just looking to turn my brain off and have some fun. But if the comments were anything to go by, those were all pretty popular picks. But what about the weapons that I enjoy that don't get a lot of attention? G'day there once again viewers, this is your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today guys, we're going to talk about 10 weapons that I consider to be underrated in Planetside 2. So, there's no denying that we all have our go-to weapons, or even weapons that are considered to be quote-unquote meta picks by the community. But there are weapons out there that I consider to be excellent options that I also don't see get a lot of use in day-to-day combat. So today, I wanted to take some time to highlight these weapons and give them a little bit of love under the spotlight. I want to emphasize here that this list is not based on any use times stats, and is not a reflection of weapons that I consider to be the best in the game. It's merely a list of weapons that hold a special place in my heart and find myself often using when the opportunity arises that I don't see used a lot by my opponents in game. And if anything, this is just a bit of fun, highlighting some different options that you have if you're looking for a new weapon to sink your teeth into. So without further ado, let's get into the list. And let's get things started off with the GD22S. The GD22S holds a very special place in my heart, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. This was the first LMG I unlocked with my hard-earned certs way back in the early days of Planetside 2, back when the grind was as bad as it ever was, and it was a trusty companion for little old innocent Cammy who was struggling with the brutal kick of the Gauss Saw. The GD22S is often overlooked when compared to the LA1 Anchor in particular, considering that the Anchor sports the more aggressive damage model by a small margin, and it also has access to the advanced laser sight for those occasions where the only way to make a point is with a well-placed barrel stuffed to the mouth. But in saying that, where the GD22S loses out on damage, it makes up for with incredible accuracy. And when you compare it to its belligerent Gauss Saw cousin, this thing looks like a tamed, well-maintained show poodle that will fetch a beer for you on request. It's a well-behaved weapon, which means that if I ever find myself in a situation where I just want to, kind of turn my brain off and shoot some stuff without having to worry about recoil control, this is a pretty good pick. There's a reason that many argue that this should be the NC's default LMG as opposed to the Gauss Saw. The Saber 13. This is a weapon that I've defended righteously against quote-unquote non-believers in the past, and I'm still willing to die on that hill if anyone wants to challenge me on this. This being a burst rifle, it's one of those weapons that I see overlooked a ton because it's quite simply a burst fire rifle. And yes, burst fire weapons in this game are going to be less adept CQC, which is where the majority of your infantry engagements are going to happen. But there's no denying how good of a weapon this is at reaching out and giving those pesky NC and freaky VS a good old stroke of the Emperor's wisdom when it's needed. I have counter-sniped fools with this thing under the right circumstances, and the results are just so satisfying. Yes, I will be the first to admit that 8 times out of 10 I will take something else into battle, but those 2 times where I do take the Saber 13, it's a machine that can do things that nothing else can within the confines of the TR assault rifle arsenal, a weapon that I personally think deserves more attention by users out there. The Flare VG6 has felt, and FYI this is going to be a pretty common theme throughout the rest of this video, a little overshadowed lately by the introduction of the More, which is more in line with the very popular LA1 Anchor model available to the NC and is the Doku LMG that was introduced into the game recently. The Flare, however, was one of the 2 original 167 damage model LMGs available to the Vanu Sovereignty at the time, and was also probably the more aggressive of the 2. The Ursa has always been a more laid-back variant, so if you think the Flare is feeling overshadowed, just imagine how the Ursa is feeling. Anyway, I digress. This made the weapon a very close companion for me when I started playing the Vanu Sovereignty, as well, it resembled that of my NC counterparts that I've been using for a very long time. It kicks like a mule by comparison to Old Faithfuls like the Orion, but damn does it hit hard, and out at range in the hands of a skilled operative, it's a weapon that preaches quality over quantity. You could go way worse than the Flare, and it makes for an excellent addition to any armory, especially if you're in the mood to take things just a little bit slower. The Zenith VX-5. It's a carbine that paints with a roller as opposed to, an actual brush. This is the Vanu Sovereignty's premium jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none carbine that sports a very attractive suite of attachment options and a collection of stats that makes it one very handsome head-turner of a carbine. Now, this thing often gets pushed aside because of its jack-of-all-trades nature. Why sacrifice performance in a particular area of battle if that's where you'll think you'll be fighting anyway? Going for long-range harassment? The Pulsar C is your friend. Looking for CQC menace? Take your pick between the Serpent or the VX6-7. But there's always going to be those occasions where you find yourself in a firefight where those weapons just aren't going to be up to the challenge. The Zenith is just a worker of a carbine. You say jump, it says how high. It's access to both the advanced laser sight and advanced forward grip, and 0.75 times aiming down sights movement multiplier with a very agreeable recoil pattern to boot makes it a very easy weapon to use across many situations. It's a great runner that I've been enjoying a lot more lately, and something that I feel as though deserves a bit more limelight. The TMG50 still sits in the TR arsenal as the only LMG available that sports the heavier 167 damage model, which kinda gives it a bit of a monopoly here for this style of weapon in this category for the TR. Now I get it, I know you TR love your darker as much as the next Emperor, and this again could be my inner NC talking, but this is a weapon I see skipped out a lot on despite just how much fun it is to use. With 75 rounds in the mag at any given time, it sports more killing potential per mag versus its NC and VS equivalents, which gives it some pretty insane crowd control abilities, especially considering it's going to take you less bullets to kill a target per kill. It's just a stonks move to run this weapon from time to time. Like the flare though, you do need to train that shoulder to absorb some heavier recoil because yeah, by comparison to the likes of the MSWR and the T9 Carve, this weapon kicks and screams like a mule who just got told no more carrots for the day. The Carnage AR is one trooper of an assault rifle, and I have always struggled to find a situation where it just simply doesn't work. It's the extrovert of the NC assault rifle family, able to fit itself into any situation comfortably and, make friends out of anything. Allow me to explain. It features a maximum damage model that directly competes with the likes of the T9 Carve and the Beetlejuice. It comes with a pretty decent collection of attachment options, including advanced versions of both the forward grip and the laser sight, and a compensator, so you can really build this thing to be a laser beam when it comes to ADSing or hip firing. And if all that wasn't enough, it sports the 0.75 times aiming down sights movement multiplier. So yeah, even if you're aiming down sights, you can be one of the most aggressive medics out there if you can place your shots right. Oh, and a word of advice, if you build this weapon for aiming down sights accuracy above all else, you're going to have no problems at all blitzing through the bulkiest of enemies with a stream of headshots. Take it from me, this was my first NC assault rifle that I Araxiumed, and it just may very well hold the title for my favorite assault rifle in the game. It really surprises me that this thing seems to remain as an afterthought to many of my NC compadres, and is a good amount of fun to run whenever you have the chance. Okay, look, this one is no secret. It's underrated, and that's not necessarily the fault of the weapon itself. The Blitz sports one of the fastest fire rates in the NC arsenal, only being rivaled by that of the GD7F. It sports a 50-round magazine that is excellent for dealing with multiple targets per mag if your aim is true, and it sports that good old SMG hipfire accuracy that we all know and love. But it's also the little, just slightly less impressive brother to the AF4 Cyclone. Again, it's not necessarily the fault of the Blitz itself, it's not its fault that it ended up being related to such a cocky overachiever of a weapon, but it is the fate that it was dealt. In saying that though, if there's ever a time I feel like embracing my inner Bert as an NC cloaker or something, then this is the weapon I'll take. No, it isn't a Cyclone, and no, it probably isn't more effective by comparison. Like, looking at it tat for tat, it's probably a worse pick overall. But the Blitz is still a damn fun weapon that is effective in its own right. Hell, I'd even give it more probs when it comes to crowd control by comparison to the Cyclone thanks to its bulkier mag. So even if you find yourself needing those few extra bullets when doing some cheeky Spec Ops gameplay, this might be the weapon that's a better choice for you anyway. Ah, the HC1 Cougar. I still remember hearing that this thing was coming out and legitimately jumping for joy at the prospect that the TR was getting a 167 damage model carbine. But recently, the TR got another 167 damage model carbine in the form of the Kindred. And look, when a weapon like the Kindred comes out, it's nigh impossible to even consider using anything else. The Kindred is just that good of a gun. But in saying that, the Cougar is still a weapon I find myself returning to over and over again when I'm just looking for something a little bit less angry than the likes of the Kindred. It sports a recoil pattern that makes it great for a more quote-unquote perched playstyle, picking away at targets while sitting high above as a light assault. It also makes for a great support weapon while you're playing as an engineer and supporting an armor column or a max suit push. Yeah, admittingly it's not as good as where the Kindred's at now, but it's fun to run every once in a while. Okay, so if you were to look at these weapons and sort of think to yourself, what the hell are these, then I wouldn't blame you, not one bit. Firstly, these weapons weren't exactly that popular in their quote-unquote heyday, but with the release of the new Doku battle rifles, I'd even be willing to argue that these scout rifles have kind of been... actually, nah, completely pushed aside. The new battle rifles sport no damage drop-off, which makes them just superior at ranged engagements. Hell, the Obelisk made its way into my top 10 favorite weapons list for a reason. But these weapons made their way into my loadouts for a long time beforehand, and even with the new age battle rifles in play, these weapons sport a faster refire time, which makes them a little bit more adaptable for CQC engagements. And yeah, if you're gonna go into CQC on purpose often, then you're probably better off taking an SMG anyway. But still, these weapons can be fun and are definitely worth your time for a challenge. They're definitely not the worst weapons to go about Araximing for a directive per se. And last but not least, the good old EM6. Now, I'm not going to lie, out of all the weapons on this list, I do feel as though this one is the least underrated of the bunch. It's a weapon that I do see used most by comparison to the weapons that we've talked about today, but in saying that, I do feel as though it's a weapon that deserves just a little bit more love than what it gets from the day-to-day. It sports an identical damage model to that of the LA1 Anchor, a weapon that we have referred to on many occasions in this video and in many, but it also sports a 200-round magazine with extended mags attachment. That's more than what most TR LMGs can handle. So yeah, you see a hallway? That hallway's yours now. And if anyone wants to dispute that, they can speak to your EM6, the manager equivalent of Araxis in this case. It's a bloody fun time when you're faced with the right choke point, and to be honest, a true cert printer if you have fun holding down that choke point. And guys, that kind of wraps up today's video discussing 10 weapons I consider underrated in the Planetside 2 universe right now. Guys, it was a lot of fun making this video. I really enjoyed going back and visiting some of these weapons that we don't really spend a lot of time with nowadays, and yeah, it was a good video to make. Let me know in the comment section down below which weapons you believe to be underrated in the game right now. Let me know if there's a weapon out there that you really enjoy but you think doesn't get a whole lot of attention and should get more. Do let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed today's video, please consider backhanding the like button. It goes a long way to support the channel, and well, if you find yourself enjoying the content even more so, then that subscribe button also works there as well. And if you feel so inclined, you can choose to support the channel on a monthly basis with our memberships feature. Use the join button down below to explore your options there as well. Once again guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys on the next one. Take care guys, have a good one.